Mr. Whalen, on the email you sent out the other day with the attachments of chapter 20 and that brief information about chapter 21, do you have the actual description for chapter 21 discussion? I figure you
I
didn't.
sure hope so.
I figured you didn't. That's why you didn't send in the email. But I just want to make sure that I hit all the pointers.
Hang on a second. Let me dig around. Let me dig around quick. Because I'm not, I can't, I was panicking when I did that. I can't remember what I sent. Art history. Assignments. Oh boy. Okay, chapter 21, Quattrocento. I sent out Plato versus Aristotle, right? Let me see what I've got here. Okay, and so, oh yeah, this is just that, that's not the assignment description. That's just the document. Crap. And this, and both of these that I have, so, okay, thank you so much for mentioning that, because it's gonna screw things up if people don't know what to write. I had one person already respond to this excellently. I already graded that before Blackboard went down. The only mistake they made was that they used something from the 1500s in Italy, not something from the 1400s, but that's okay. Okay, so for chapter 21, Quattrocento, you are to choose one work that you think exemplifies the argument that you agree with here, with Plato or Aristotle. And so really, and maybe this will help you out, what's the disagreement between Plato and Aristotle? I found the easiest way to present this, and that this is from the University of Houston. Thanking them so much for condensing this down. So you don't have to read you don't have to read Aristotle's Republic and Plato's Republic and Aristotle's Poetics. You don't have to read that. Okay. I think it's interesting that the titles are different, but which one do you guys agree with? Which of these guys is right?
I think I'm leaning more towards Aristotle a little bit. Like I can see the points from both ends of it, but I think for Aristotle's perspective, it's more, because while I understand where Plato's coming from, where imitation can lead to misrepresentations, and to a certain extent can detract from people's reality, I guess. But I feel like with I agree with Aristotle more because it's more you should be able to explore possibilities by creating imitations of things that aren't reality. Like there's a little bit more freedom there for people to interpret and create as they see fit.
Under Aristotle, yeah. It definitely frees up the artist, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of directions that this discussion should go. One is that Plato, of course, is the original essentialist, right? What is an essentialist? Anybody? Haley doesn't know. These are these arguments that philosophers have been doing since Plato. He started stuff that we're still not settled on. Plato, and I'm really giving this a very simple, almost a caricature of the philosophical stance, which is that existence comes from an idea that is there before existence. And so things proceed from the essences. Okay? In other words, there's before we make a chair, there's the idea of the chair. That's the famous discussion, okay? And the way that Plato expressed this best was in his symposium. They call it the symposium. It's actually, someone wrote down later what was discussed at one of the parties that they had. No kidding. You know what symposium means, don't you? When people have a symposium, in the original, that's Latin. I don't know the Greek for it, but it means drinking party. Simp, to drink. Anyway, they were drinking, and Plato had this idea to convey the idea of the essences that we are in existence are like a person who is tied to a chair in a cave facing the back wall, and light can come from outside, and we cannot see the real things out in the world from where they come from. We only see the shadows of the things, so that what we see is a shadow of the essence that's out there. So they hold up things like animals and a chair, for instance, and we get an idea of what things are really like from that in this existence that we are in. Anyway, so his point was with art, with theater, he was really concerned about theater because he felt that it had the potential to damage the minds of the viewers. In other words, to make them believe in something that is not real, right? Was he correct?
Well, I think to a certain extent. I mean, it's more, I guess, from what I'm understanding is he seems to think that people don't have the ability to, I guess, figure things out other than through plays. Because I mean, the idea where you're sitting in the cave tied to the chair makes sense, but we're also, we're not actually tied to a chair looking at a cave wall.
Or we're trapped in the matrix.
Right. Yeah. So you have the ability to go out and explore those ideas for yourself.
And how do you know you're trapped in the matrix? Well, you take a class like this. No, right? You'll see a glitch. What about deep fakes? Plato could not have actually he might have, because he was thinking about the essential. In other words, he knew that behind the idea of imitation was this essential idea of imitation, and that if he could imagine its full expression. The other thing that he was dealing with was that, theater was a newly developed or relatively newly developed, and there was technology being added to it, by the way. Smoke and mirrors. And by the way, these theatrical tricks were also being deployed in temples, of places of worship, where the viewers would go. If you had ancient art history, you'd know that viewers go and they stand outside and they look inside, and stuff is going on inside the temple because the god has come. You get the idea? So anyway, you got all that. What about deep fakes? Have you seen this?
I've heard there's an expression that I heard one time that if you tell a lie enough that it becomes truth. But
you know who said that, don't you?
I can't remember the guy's name.
I want to say it was Stalin.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, a good lie has to have a lot of truth in it.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it?
You have to be able to make it at least sound like it could be real.
Exactly. So I mean, and when we think of works of art that work, the reason they work, the reason they're good, is that they show us something that's true. And this is interesting. When we get into the moderns later, we'll still be saying that, right? Do you know abstract expressionism, Jackson Pollock, right? Wait, let me pull up one. This is interesting, because Pollock was trying to find an art that wasn't fake or imitation or something. I'll just pull up one. Shanice would be so happy. She loves Jackson Pollock. Okay, here, I'll just pick like a nice example. I hope that they'll let me see it. All right, I think this is number one. Wow, a lot of color for Pollock, actually. What's this movement called? Anybody know what this movement is called in art? Well, you'll learn this semester. These are the abstract expressionists. They were called by critics. Do you know what the artists themselves called themselves? What they called this? The New Realism. This is a realistic painting. How can this possibly be a realistic painting? Star Asia, are you in here? Not really. Nobody, no, oh, you know what it is? Is that it wasn't trying to be anything but a painting. It wasn't trying to give you an illusion. It's just paint on canvas. Exciting. Wait, you know what this gets to, I think, is that between Plato and Aristotle, we have big ideas. These big ideas drive things, okay? Aristotle encounter, you know, and it's interesting because he was a protege of Plato. Aristotle did not agree and thought, no, we bring imitation into it, and the truer or better the imitation, the more we learn from it. And he thought the best tragedy, you know, all right, so tragedy, tragedy was the high form of theater, okay? Comedy was the low form, as you can imagine, right? I mean, in tragedy, what happens?
Generally, you'd have, well, I guess the best thing I can describe it as like the tragic hero, I guess, where you've got, you know, it's you know, a tragedy. It's something really awful happens to somebody who's, you know, you perceive to be, you know, really good.
Yep. I mean, in some ways, everybody dies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or somebody dies. Oh, I'm gonna mess this up. There's a comedy, darn it. I'm not gonna remember what it is. The women, I can't remember the name of it now. I hope I can get it back to my head somewhere. But the women of Sparta and the women of Athens get together and decide to withhold sex from the men until they stop the war. And it includes a woman from Sparta showing her bum kicking dance. A different moment in the theater there. Anyway, all of these are supposed to create a catharsis. Catharsis equals purification through pity and fear. That's the drama. There was a catharsis after the comedy too. You know, you're supposed to learn a lesson and do better, like stop the war, right? Make love, don't make war. So anyway, that's interesting to me. You know, I know as a producer of art, we're all gonna end up agreeing with Aristotle a little bit, aren't we? However, we may be attracted to ideas coming from Plato about the essences, like the idea of getting at the essential. One of the things that the Greeks were big on is that something that is aesthetically beautiful is about truth, and that it shows the truth. Okay? What the heck does this have to do with painting? What the heck does this have to do with the Renaissance?
Well, I guess you could, you know, a lot of the Renaissance painting were attempting to make very lifelike figures, as opposed to some of the previous things where a lot of it was more, you know, flat looking or two-dimensional.
They wanted to express the truth of a person standing in a three-dimensional space, at least that, right? So we get the perspective in the Quattrocento, and then you know, certainly in the next century we move into a whole new level that was kind of foreshadowed by works. Remember the Bellini with the St. Francis standing out there, out in the beauty of the man. That's one of my favorite paintings from that era. Anyway, so you get that right. Before I break out the PowerPoint, let me ask you guys a question, and this is kind of like, and Jarius and Star Asia, please turn on so we can get a kind of a poll going here. Like unmute. Yeah, that's okay. Just unmute if you're indisposed. We appreciate your support. Can you think of a piece of art? A piece of art that you think of when you think of the, here I go with my Italian, Cinquecento. Man, I miss Drew Drugiano Sherbo, when I first came to work here, he worked here, and he had been here for years, and he was a wonderful guy. He is a wonderful guy, and he's Italian. So you've got this wonderful thing where in this department, you'll hear us refer to each other sometimes as Signor, Signor. That comes from him. Hey, good morning, Signor. All right, so Cinquecento. Any piece come to mind that typifies this century, or typifies the high achievement in Italy? Some of this is like, did you actually look at your book? Hey, wait, I need everybody to unmute, or I'll unmute you. Turn and tell me, do you have the book? Okay. Brian's got the book. He's digging for it. Jarius, do you have the book?
The name of the book?
Do you have the book?
What's the name of the book?
This is why we should do this, maybe earlier than 6 weeks into the semester. Gardner's Art Through the Ages? That, right there. Haley's holding it up.
It's freaking huge, Jarius. If you'd have it, you'd know.
Yeah, I got it.
He's not sure where it is, but he's got it somewhere. Star Asia?
No, I got it.
Good for you. Star Asia? I think she must have fallen back asleep, which is understandable. All right, you three that are in the room, this is not a test. This is just, to see, hey, have you looked at what do you think you're going to see in the Cinquecento? What's the one piece that you think is the piece from this century? Oh, come on. Anything. Nothing comes to mind? See, I understand you guys have been busy. You just didn't get into the book yet. Right?
I think the one that comes to mind, there's like a painting of like Plato and Aristotle, but I think that's
okay. That's one of the pieces. You're talking about the School of Athens.
It's got like the Plato and Aristotle in the middle, and then you got like all the other people around the outside.
That really expresses the Renaissance at this point, doesn't it? That we'll look at that piece closely. Haley, anything?
Hey, bear with me. Are you ready for this? Is it the painting by Michelangelo, Creation of Adam?
Yeah, now it's interesting. You guys both chose the center of these particular pieces, okay? These are the two pieces. If I think of the High Renaissance, I go, it's either the School of Athens or the Sistine Chapel ceiling, right? And for so many reasons, they express everything about this era. And when we say High Renaissance, people like me tend to look, I tend to look at the beginning of the 1500s to be more about it, and then the later stuff is what we call mannerism. We'll talk about why that happens. Okay, Jarius, what about you? Did you remember, or you can agree with somebody? You don't have to find something new. Which one do you think?
Which art piece?
Yes, sir.
Probably the art piece for this century. I would probably agree with Brian.
Okay. All right, the School of Athens. So what did I choose to start with? This one. I chose this one for so many reasons. There are so many things going on at the same time here that in some ways it's like it opens up the whole thing, okay? It's like, if you want to understand art, one of my favorite theories, it came from my Marxist professor at ECU. One of my favorite theories here is that art always reflects the desires of the participants. And so everything about it, certainly the aesthetic, right? How masterfully this is being done, how this is being handled. And the aesthetic here about telling the truth about perspective and so forth. And then at the same time, we're telling the truth about perspective while we are lying our faces off. It's a wonderful lie. It's a beautiful lie. The phrase comes to mind. C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite authors, said that myth was, this was before he became a Christian. He said that myth was lies breathed through silver. Myth. Another way to think about myth is the big idea. What's the big idea here? Here you go. What's the big idea? Something's going on here. Wait, there's a lot going on. For instance, where is this? You know, the boring stuff, the labels down at the bottom. Where is this thing? Oh, it's not in the label. Figures.
If I had to take a guess.
Take a guess.
Greece.
Oh, absolutely not. No, this is Italy, man. We're doing Italy.
Right.
So really, you know, no, what city is it in?
Florence? Rome?
You would think it was Florence, and I'll tell you why. It's got a heavy Florentine influence. Okay, so that's fair. It's not in Florence, by the way, but it's a heavy influence. The artist, who's the artist? Anybody know? Oh yeah, Raphael. Oh, wait a minute, that's one of our Ninja Turtles, isn't it? Let me see. When did I do? There he is. This is so you can remember. Okay, so it's Raphael. He came from Florence and he dove in just like this. Okay? Because everybody came from Florence. Really, literally. Also, what makes something like this happen? Really? What do you got to have?
You gotta know people, or somebody's got to know you and commission the work to put it in there.
Right. And this takes some time and expertise, and you're in high demand. What does that imply?
That probably while you're working on this, you're probably working on other things as well. So it probably took a right good while.
It could be. I think Raphael was aware of the problems that Michelangelo had with the Sistine Chapel ceiling, and he didn't want to be caught in the same thing, so he moved right along here. Notice it's a year. He's 1510 to 1511. Okay.
Okay.
I had the experience of doing a mural in a church and having little old ladies come up to me and say, "When will it be done?" You don't ever want to be in that situation. Okay. Anyway, so he's from Florence. You know who else is from Florence? Oh, wait, what else do you need? You need the artist. What else do you need?
You need to pay the artist.
That's it. You need money. Wow. This is a lot of change. This is heavy duty bling, right? Oh, by the way, have you guessed what city this is in? Brian's doing all the work. Nobody else is saying anything. Well, I'll give you a hint. All roads lead there.
Rome?
Yes. Not only is this in Rome, this is the Vatican. This is the Vatican Library. Makes sense, doesn't it? The Vatican Library. And we're going to show everything about philosophy and science and literature, poetry. By the way, we always talk about the School of Athens, right? We don't necessarily mention the Parnassus. Parnassus is based on the idea there was the place in Greece where the prophet of Delphi, in Delphi, Greece, resided, and she spoke poetry. I mean, she spoke prophecy / poetry, and so it becomes the source of the poetic, right? By the way, the Greek for the poetic is mimesis. Huh. This is, by the way, oh yeah, that's this other thing. This is the Vatican, right? What the heck are all these Greek and Roman and everything, Plato and Aristotle? What are these guys doing here? How did this get, wait a minute, how did this happen, right? Oh, wait, let me drop one on you. I'm gonna mess this up because I can't remember what book in the Bible it's in. It's in, I wanna say it's in Ephesians, where Paul says that we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. And when he says we are his workmanship, the word that he uses there is poema. Poema. His opus, that's the Latin. We're his poetry. We're the work of art. Remember, these guys did not see a conflict. All of this knowledge, right? All truth, all this thing about the quest for truth and all the multifaceted aspects of it, okay, was considered legitimate concern of the Christian faith. And so, of course, in the center of the Vatican Library where learning happens, right, or where study and research happens, that we would see all of it here, which I think is a wonderful expression of this stuff. Meanwhile, we've got a carefully crafted illusion, don't we? I love it. The idea that you look through this and you think you're looking back into a space that's beyond this archway that's here. And the archway itself is flat. I just love it. By the way, I think that's the door where the Pope comes out right there. Oh, that also, by the way, I love calling attention to things like this. It gives us an idea of the scale, number one. And then it also leads us into this stuff. What the heck? As if this wasn't enough, right? Look at this. This is all part of the painting. The painting is not up here. The painting is all around here and takes into account the whole of the environment that we're in here. And by the way, this stuff over here, I'm not sure if this would be by Raphael, but these are images, illustrations, and things like that. Some of them are being done with inlaid wood, different colors of inlaid wood. Anyway, fascinating. You got this stuff in here, the black and white, all this stuff that looks sort of neutral tones or black and white, they call grisaille. We mentioned it before, Grisaille, grisaille. A traditional way of painting in architectural, by the way, the enhancement of architecture. That's what painting is about. At this stage in history, the way you really looked at painting was an enhancement of architecture or an extension of architecture. Okay, maybe we got that. I know. Oh, somewhere later in this, I take it apart. I take apart the specifics. These are the cities where the High Renaissance primarily is happening. There are certainly other locations. Look, did you realize that Milan was way up there? It means it's like right below the Alps.
Yeah.
Fascinating, to think of where these guys are making work. And of course, Florence is dead center. So we have the Ninja Turtles and the Three Amigos. Anybody seen that movie? That's your assignment. See that movie. That's when comedy was actually funny. Okay. Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael, they all began in Florence, and everybody studied Masaccio. So you see the perspective, right? And then the other thing about telling the truth, I love it. The horror, the expression, there's nothing worse than having a bad day and knowing it's your fault. Oh my gosh. Okay, so why did they study him? Did you know this? One of the most famous paintings in all of our history, The Last Supper. This is one of the ones that's like the praying hands that everybody's seen it because your mom or an aunt or somebody's got it up somewhere in some either paint by number. My church, they have a paint by number Last Supper out there in the fellowship hall. They have the Last Supper, and you got the praying hands. You're not going to have the Sistine Chapel ceiling too often, are you? Although it reverberates in the culture, doesn't it? We'll talk about it later. So first of all, you didn't know it's not very big, is it? Well, you can kind of get a sense of the scale here, right? Do you have any idea what kind of space this is? What happens in this room? I know right now nothing happens in this room other than people standing around gaping at the painting, right? So that's interesting. The artist did the mural, and the mural took over the room. What did they do in this room? Do you know?
It looks like, and I mean, I'm just spitballing, but it looks like part of a monastery, maybe.
It's definitely source museum, Monastery of Santa Maria delle Grazie, Milan, Italy. So you're right.
Oh.
You're correct. It's a monastery. What else? But what was done in this room?
Mass, I guess.
Definitely not. Matter of fact, what was done in this room is one of the reasons that the painting is in such decay. Did you know the painting is in decay?
I think I heard about that, where like the type of paint that they use for, where they use the egg or whatever, that like the paint's starting to like deteriorate or like fade or whatever.
Yeah, that Leonardo was a scientist. You know, he would like to experiment. He wanted to find things out. So he liked certain aspects of the way that not tempera, but he liked certain aspects of the way fresco works, right? Where it goes and soaks into the wet plaster, okay? And he likes certain aspects of the oil. Oh, they say tempera. When they say tempera, they just mean that he attempted to put fresco into the wall along with oil. And that's tempera and the plaster, that's water base, and oil is oil base. Does oil and water mix?
Nope, not nope. In the least.
Did I tell you guys about me painting my uncle's dock? He had a nice house on the waterfront on a river in my hometown in Long Branch, New Jersey. And I was out there all the time mowing his lawn, and he had boats. He let me use his boats. He bought a sailboat so I could sail it. He was a very nice uncle. Anyway, he got me to paint his dock. And I said, well, what paint should I use? You know, he had a bunch of stuff in his garage. And he said, oh, just take some things and mix them together. You know, it doesn't matter what color it comes out, okay? So I took things and mixed them together. I mixed latex and oil together. And I kept stirring it. It kept having these little bubbles in it, and I didn't understand what was going on. I painted the dock, and it had these little freckles all over it, bubbles, you know? It was actually kind of pretty. Kind of weird, though. Oil and water don't mix. And so the painting started falling apart about 6 months after Da Vinci painted it. That's interesting. So then if it's falling apart, why is it one of the greatest paintings? We'll talk about that in a minute or two. You don't know what went on in this room, do you? Oh, come on. What are they doing here in this painting?
Oh, was it a like some sort of like dining hall or something?
That's it. It's a dining hall. And so to add insult to injury, the monks that were eating in there are eating lots and lots and lots of spaghetti. And the fumes from the spaghetti, from the pasta, had, you know, wheat is a wonderful paste. You know that, right? It's an amazing paste. And so microscopic particles of wheat paste were making their way up onto the painting, grabbing onto the surface that was already pulling apart and decaying, and cracking and peeling it and pulling it off. Wonderful stuff. Okay. All right. So Renaissance sensibility. This is, you know, clearly, it's like Masaccio with the Adam and Eve, right? How does a painting like this work? What is the point of a painting like this?
I guess to kind of portray a certain event that's happening as, I guess, whoever's painting it understands it to be.
Yeah, everybody in the audience would know the story, wouldn't they?
Yep.
And the idea is to pick or create a scene that unfolds the story in one shot. So the range of time and emotion is happening across the piece, right? What moment is this, by the way? This is what, this is to unpack the iconography. It helps to know the background.
It's the
Now,
last
Brian's
supper.
doing all the work. Somebody else.
I genuinely don't know.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. It's interesting. We look. Oh, what does it mean to be modern? What does it mean? What does the term modern mean? We asked that at the beginning of the semester. We're going to visit it again and again and again. So we don't spend a lot of time with it. I'll say one way of looking at being modern, is that we have this thing called progress. We make progress, right? Okay. So you would think, 100 years ago, education, for instance, was not much, because now it's a lot better, right? Because we're making progress, aren't we?
We should be.
Are we? Do you know that most college graduates could not pass the final exam for junior high school from 1898? That would not pass. Why? Well, back then, they taught you Plato. You actually read Plato. You read Aristotle. You read Virgil. You read all of these guys. You read the Bible, of course. But, in other words, you had something that filled out your understanding of Western civilization. It's like, you cannot understand the United States without understanding the Civil War. So in the same way you can't understand without understanding the revolution, you cannot understand Western civilization without understanding where the Greeks and Romans were and where the Christians were and where all this stuff happened, because it affects every blasted thing that happens in our culture. Along with Pootie Tang. Okay, anyway, this is the moment at the Last Supper, the night before Jesus is crucified. Okay? Okay. And the moment is right here, the Christ figure in this, you know which one it is, right?
Yep.
Dead center. Oh, yeah. Look, Leonardo did the thing Mr. Whalen says don't do. He put him right in the center. He's emphasizing the deity there, isn't he? He's the guy. Lots of reasons, lots of subtle, very, very subtle expressions of this, by the way. And it's a definite Renaissance expression because, darn, do I have a close-up of that? No, I have a sketch. Okay. Some other presentation somewhere, I've got close-ups. You come in here, right? And look at his form. What shape is that?
A triangle.
That's one of the most powerful geometric shapes that exist in composition. So we've got a triangle. And by the way, that's an equilateral triangle in the dead center of this painting, right? I don't want to say dead center, in the very heart of this painting. Okay, hey, here's a question. We watched the evolution of the halo, from the flat gold-plated thing, actual gold-plated thing, to in Masaccio where they turn it on an angle, right? Because if it's behind the person and the person's giving you a 3/4 view, the disc is somewhere behind them, but it's kind of like you can't go through a door with that thing. You're going to hit something. Okay, where's the halo? Because he's the guy. Huh?
There doesn't seem to be one.
Oh, yes, there is.
So
Absolutely, there is.
Yeah, not the doorway.
That's I think that's a window, but yeah, maybe the doorway, the window. Oh, so then what's the light of the halo? It's not in the shape of the halo? Oh, wait a minute. Do you see this subtle thing up here?
Yes.
That Renaissance archway. Oh, wow. That's actually a big one, isn't it? The halo is creation itself. Jesus said a couple of things. He said, before Abraham was, I am. And when he said, I am, he was using the word you're not supposed to use. Did you know that? I am. That's the phrase they had for God the Father in the Old Testament, Yahweh. Transliterated in our English to Jehovah. So, wait, here's the point. Was Da Vinci aware of these theological underpinnings? And was he expressing this to an audience that would get the joke? You know where I'm going with, you see where I'm going with this? So then he says, this is the moment that he calmly says, tonight, one of you is going to betray me. And everybody jumps back and says, what? What? That's why you have this thing going on here. And then there's a debate. Who is it? Is it me? It's not me, is it? Right? And then he says something. He says, the one that's got his hand in the dish, with me, that will be the one. I can't remember the exact words, but you get the idea. Can you tell? That would be Judas. You're familiar with that? Okay. So these things reverberate still in our culture, don't they? You don't want to be a Judas, do you? The one in the team that betrays the team. Okay. The mafia, when they're gonna give you a hit, or they designate you as giving a hit, traditionally they would come and give you a kiss. It's called the Judas kiss. Right? Because Judas, later in the night, tonight, that same night, he betrays Jesus with the kiss. Okay, can you guess which one's Judas?
If I remember correctly, he's sitting next to him, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got to be near him, at least pretty near him. But which one? Here, I'll move the mouse around. Is it this guy?
I think it's the guy behind that guy.
Oh, up over here. Now, this guy's interesting character. Thank you for picking that out, because sometimes I forget things are in here. This guy is doing something, right? He's got his finger up in the air. What kind of gesture is that?
I guess I don't think this is the term, but like incredulous. Like he's just can't believe. It's like, how dare you make this accusation kind of thing.
Wait. He's pointing up. He's making a declaration. So you're on the right track. That's Peter.
Okay. Yeah.
Saying, "I will never deny you." Right? And what's the thing that happens there?
He does.
Yeah, 3 times. Okay. All right. So there's that. Okay. We can't see it real close, right? I'm sorry, I don't have a close up. All right, I'll jump to it. Oh, this is interesting. Another triangle, but this one's skewed. It's not a right triangle. Okay, it doesn't have a right angle. It's off. And look, he's the only person who is silhouetted. No light is falling on his face. And you can't see it, it's too fuzzy because it's beat up, but he's holding a money bag here. And that's one of the things that Judas did. He took care of the money. Yeah, he took care of it, all right. All right, so you get the idea. Look, wait a minute. What are we into here? Why am I going through all of this? Do I want to teach you a Sunday school lesson? Is that what I'm doing?
Well, it helps to better understand the what's going on in the painting if you know the story and the lore behind it.
There's a lot there. Yes?
I also think that knowing the story just brings out more of the value of the painting in general.
Yes, that's true. Now, the interesting thing is that when this was created, everybody would know the story. That's the point I was getting with modernism, is like sometimes we just forget stuff that might be important. Everybody would understand the story, but here's what's happening. This is being done on a psychological level of complexity that hasn't been seen since the pediment statues for the Parthenon in Greece. 1,500 years earlier. No, 2,000 years earlier. Sorry. In other words, that psychological complexity to convey a story, the drama, there it is. There's the drama. And yeah, this is Aristotelian, and Platonic. This is. You remember the church was teaching at the time a lot of Neoplatonism, the ideas that come from the Greeks that were overlapping with letters in the New Testament. All right, cool stuff. We could talk and talk and talk, but we can't, right? I don't even know what time it is. What time is it?
Like 8:55.
Oh, wow. And they wanted me in a meeting at 9 o'clock. I said no. Okay. I love this. A sketch for a piece like this. Awesome that you get to see something like that. This is this is terracotta. It's a similar kind of implement to charcoal. Not quite the same thing. Da Vinci is known for this technique of what they call sfumato, where you have the dark. Oh, by the way, we're not going to get through the High Renaissance in 1 week. We're not going to be able to do it. Okay. This beautiful dark and light figures emerging out of the mid-tone gray. Oh, Haley, there it is. This is what we've been doing with the ink wash and stuff. You know, look at all the texture backgrounds of this thing, right? And then he does stuff where, you know, basically he's letting the form occur. The drapery is so well understood, but then it sinks down into the darkness of the shadows. And so the figures emerge and come forward out of the darkness into the light. And the light
I
just...
hope you weren't expecting that from us. I'm just kidding.
Yes, I am. By the way, if you want to get good, you know how you do it. This is Aristotelian now. You ready? Copy. You copy a master. But hey, you guys, that's a 200-point extra credit happiness. You have an opportunity. Get an approval for a piece that you want to copy. Anything. Well, not anything. Yeah, anything. Boy, oh boy, am I setting myself up. Somebody could do a Mondrian, right? Brian, you familiar with Mondrian?
Not really, no.
Okay, don't worry about it. We'll get to it, but it's real simple. It's not real simple, but it's simple, sort of, looking. People who don't know. Okay, moving on. Oh, yeah. That one. Why is it so... You know, we probably have to spend too much time to understand why. I mean, why is this like the most valuable painting on earth? It's one of them anyway. It's one of the most stolen paintings. It's not the most stolen, but it's been stolen.
It was
yeah.
It was something to do with like the eyes, wasn't it? Where like it just like wherever you stood looking at the painting, it seemed like it was looking at you.
That is the weirdest thing. I wonder, did he really do that intentionally? Did it work like that? It does work, by the way, right? That's true. That's one of those things about it. It's kind of mysterious, isn't it? Oh, you know, one reason The Last Supper is one of those valuable paintings. I think the fact that it's so beat up makes it so that we see the composition and not the details. So many of us get, you know, the point a little bit better. That's my theory. That's a theory. This one is mysterious. It's got that sfumato. That's the term. S-V-U-M-A-T-O, sfumato. And the way this worked on an oil painting like this is that he would finish the painting, and then he would get out charcoal powder and mix it with oil and create a thin glaze and add darkness to the edges of everything, or darkness in between all the shadows, and essentially kind of like a subtractive thing where he would allow the light things to pull through this glaze and show. Certainly the beautiful shading, lighting, naturalism. We've seen stuff like that before in the Quattrocento and then up in the Northern Renaissance. There's the atmospheric perspective that's happening in the background. There's the delicate composition, very delicate composition of turning the body 3/4. It's an advance. By the way, Renaissance portraiture earlier would just have a profile. Profiles are easier to do, so that's one reason they did it that way. There are many reasons. Oh, the mystery. They believe this was commissioned by somebody, right? It was never delivered. Da Vinci kept it. The other thing, it's in the Louvre in Paris. This is kind of interesting about Da Vinci. How did it get to Paris? Now, the French stole lots of stuff, but this one they didn't steal. They actually had this one. Late in life, Da Vinci was commissioned by the King of France Can you imagine what the commission was? And I'm flipping through these things that are familiar to us while I ask that question. What would this is one, by the way, the most valuable painting. Bill Gates paid $30 million for it, for the book. What would the French king want from Leonardo? He's very old at this point. He wanted him to come to the palace and talk to him. He just wanted to hear what he had to say. That's it. And Da Vinci carried this painting with him up there to France. So they wonder, who is this girl, you know? Really. They think they know, but they're not sure. That's the point, you know, there's a little bit of mystery there. And then the whole thing about Da Vinci's persona, you know. You got the guy who thinks like this. Little drawings these are, by the way. I have seen these. If you get to see a show of Da Vinci's drawings, you got to go, okay? They're little things. Many of them are little. Some of them are done with silver point. Silver point was, they would prepare regular cotton rag paper, and then they would paint that paper with a ground up bone meal to create like sandpaper. And then he used an actual piece of silver that had been sharpened to a point for his drawing implement. So often in his drawings, not these necessarily, this is writing and note-taking and pens and ink. This one over here would be one of these silver points that we're talking about. So that every line, oh, by the way, there's no erasing, okay? Oh, and then you get the dissection thing here. Oh, Brian, here we go. Darn it. Darn it. Another secularist lie. Another science lie. Liars. They lied. Yes, there was a period early in the Middle Ages when actually dissection was outlawed in ancient Rome at different times. I think people go, ew, you know, and they did in the Middle Ages as well. But by 1200, 1275, somewhere in there, the church actually dictated that anybody that practiced medicine should do at least one dissection every other year. The dissection to teach was something that came a little bit later, okay? And it was definitely at university, and it was not only sanctioned by the church, it was scheduled by the church into the Renaissance. Remember, so it's important to get the distinctions here. Why is there what is the motive for the story to go like, oh, Leonardo had to hide these drawings because the church was coming to get him? Are you guys picking up my agenda?
Well, I guess it sounds like the people that were writing that he had to hide those drawings probably had a bone to pick with the church then.
Yes. So it's by the way, it's cool. It's all part of the story. You know, this, as this thing unfolds, it's all in relationship to these earlier events and ways of thinking. So yeah, you're correct. Over time, these things evolve. All right, so anyway, we'll get there. I'll stop agendizing right now. This is amazing to me. The guy thought about how to make a tank. He thought, of course, how to make something that would fly. He invented the idea of a parachute and a helicopter. And did studies like this. I mean, astounding. And many people knew of him for stuff like this. He was a military engineer. He was hired by the Duke of Milan to help out with siege works and so forth. Many times, by the way. He was in high demand. Okay, next Ninja Turtle. What time do we have?
9:05.
All right, we're doing okay. Raphael. It's sort of sort of Mona Lisa-ish, right? The small caliper Madonna. It's a Madonna and child. You know, you can see, it's interesting. You can copy somebody. Like all of these guys knew each other and learned from some of the same masters, and absorb the same thinking and ideas, but their style comes through, you know. Maybe we would notice that Raphael's is warmer, more colorful, more soft. Notice there's not sfumato, not the darkening, right? So things are much clearer in a Raphael than they are in a Da Vinci. By the way, National Gallery has a couple of Da Vincis and a couple of Raphaels. They don't have this one. This one has the great good advantage of not going anywhere because it's fresco. This is fresco. Look where fresco has gone, y'all. Remember Giotto's frescoes, which were wonderful? Just the ability. Oh, by the way, you don't get something like this done without a small army of apprentices. You know, grinding the paint, preparing the plaster, getting it ready, and then Raphael comes in and does the painting. Raphael was working on this at the same time that Michelangelo was working on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. It is known, one of the things that we can rely on Vasari for, that Raphael would finish his day's work on this thing and then walk over the other side of St. Peter's to the Sistine Chapel and to go and see what Michelangelo did that day. He would want to see the progress. He wanted to see what was going on. Everybody admired Michelangelo, held him in high regard. Didn't necessarily like him as a person. He was kind of irascible. He was a grump. So here we are. Definitely, we already talked about the extension of the architecture, which I think is amazing, right? You get into a zone like this, and it's so beautiful. It's so realistic, representational. But then you lose track of what is paint and what is architecture. You really can, can't you? You can completely not know where you are, right? There are hints in the real architecture. This door frame would tell me that there is no pillar that goes back in space behind it. Boy, you really have to get into it to see that, don't you? That means that this thing is not really there. Okay, in some way. There is some low relief sculpture, you know, like low relief plaster work that raises things up a little bit in places, but most of it is flat, like we're saying, until you get to the archway up here, and then you have all kinds of things going on. Yes, we have Plato and Aristotle. I get mixed. I think this is supposed to be Plato. Yeah, this is Plato. This is Aristotle. I'm pretty sure I have a close-up. Oh yeah, so there's this whole cool, in the PowerPoint. Oh, I gotta figure out how to give you guys the PowerPoint without Blackboard, right? So I'm gonna have to, what? Attach it to an email? Is that what you, or can you use the videos? Lord have mercy on us all. What am I doing?
I think I'm gonna need the email.
You can make a folder in OneDrive and share it with everybody.
Okay.
And we all can just look at it.
Okay, I'm gonna work that. Yeah, I stopped with some of these things because I forgot the password, and you know, I've got so many stinking places I put my password. Okay, so PowerPoints need to be migrated. This is going to be great. The only good advantage I have is this. It's been so long since I taught this particular kind of course that I have not front loaded all the PowerPoints up on Blackboard. So these are fresh. These are fresh. I've taken older PowerPoints that I've had and updated them a little bit. So in the middle, we see Plato and Aristotle, right? And I got you a nice close up there. If I didn't have the key, based on our discussion of Plato and Aristotle, by the way, I got to tell you, I was looking at the Quattrocento and I wanted to deal with this Plato. I wanted to deal with some kind of philosophical question. And I went to the Plato-Aristotle thing, forgetting about this piece. I forgot about this piece because I was thinking about the Quattrocento. And here they are. How do we know which one is Plato? If we don't have the numbering system over there on the side, how do we know which one is Plato and which one is Aristotle?
Well, I just know because I've looked at. I remember from previous classes that I've had which one's which, but
Oh, so you dealt with all this stuff before?
to an extent. I mean, a lot of history books that I've had this painting in it, so it's like it's there.
All right. Yeah, it's a symbol of the moment that the church said, oh, yeah, learning and everything like that is for, it's a moment here where it looks like it wants to present to everybody. But by the way, you and I never got into the Vatican Library back then. That's interesting. Who did? Well, the same old guys, the monks and the clerics and the folks who paid for this stuff. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. The Pope at this time is actually a Medici. I call him the Pope who had the nerve. We'll get back to that in a minute or two, okay? The Medici, yeah, the money. He's also one of the few popes, if I've got the right pope, many Medicis were popes. He's one of the few popes that actually had no priestly orders before he became pope. What? What? Anyway, all right. So look, symbolically, iconography. Can you tell by looking, can you find what would be the symbols that say that's Plato and that's Aristotle?
I guess if we're talking about symbolism, would it be the people standing on either side of them?
Oh yeah, well we know that all of the sciences and math folk are over here, right? Although I think some math people belong over here. And all the theologians and poets and so forth are over here, famous people like that, okay? What's going on here? Come on, look at the symbols. That.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he's pointing up, so it could be God, religion,
knowing that Plato had no idea about Christianity. He's like 500 years before Christianity happens. Okay, so he's pointing to the essences. That's the Neoplatonic thinking. That everything proceeds from the mind of God somehow. Okay. All right. So there's that, and then Aristotle. Number one, they both have texts, right? And then they probably represent their great works. But the other thing, Aristotle has his hand and is pointing down like this, which I think it's all cool stuff. Okay. There's over here, there's Euclid, there's Copernicus, there's all these other thinkers, right? Down here, down front, anybody know who this guy is? He's another philosopher, but he's modeled after somebody that Raphael knew.
Was it the guy that commissioned the work?
Definitely not. Let's see, number 29. Let's go dig him up. It's Epic. No, it's not Epicurus. Sorry. Oh, shoot. I don't have 29 on this little slide. But look, I can't remember who it is. Please forgive me, right? But it's modeled after Michelangelo. The brooding, notice he's definitely not involved in the rest of the stuff here. Number 2. Number 28. Darn it, I didn't copy everything in here. Oh, there it is. Antisocial Heraclitus, who has the face of Michelangelo. So yes, I do have them all here. Number 22, Ptolemy holds an earthly globe, not Copernicus, excuse me. And Zoroaster holds a globe of the starry universe. Let me go back. Yeah, that would be way over here, which I think this is all awesome. And then, oh yeah, Epicurus, that's basically saying, let's see, number 37. So in here somewhere. Oh, notice there's a debate going on. There are emotions, but there's also a person running here who's not fully dressed. The idea of following your appetites. That was the Epicureans, a philosophical stance. You had the Stoics and the Epicureans. Who's this guy over here? Who's that guy? Oh, they don't number him. Maybe it's number 36. All right. Anyway, you could, there's more to this. You can take this apart, have some fun with it. And then, the other, Euclid with geometry. The only math class I ever passed in high school. Gorgeous. All right. Raphael was smart. You can get the idea. You get the idea that he was pretty smart, right? Not only was he smart in the art and the philosophy and all that stuff, but he was smart in business. I said that many people would know who Dürer was at this time because of his prints. Raphael was also famous throughout Europe, not just Italy, because not just his prints, but his apprentices would create drafts, cartoons from paintings. The term cartoon, we should understand what a cartoon actually is, okay? Because the word definitely precedes our use of it now. I have drawn cartoons, like I told you guys that I did a mural in a church, right? Well, how do you get these great big things up onto a wall? You don't stand back and climb up the scaffold and run up there and paint something. You don't do that. You draw it ahead of time. And the thing you draw at full size is called the cartoon. And cartoon, the root of it, the Latin root of it is chart. It's a chart. So it's a map of what you're going to create. And people like Raphael, when they do a painting, would produce a drawing, that fully detailed drawing, linear, that would show all of this activity that you see here in nice, clean line work, line art. That sounds familiar, doesn't it, Haley? Right? Because it's like that line and tone assignment that we're doing right now. And they keep these cartoons. If you look up on my website, there is a painting of a pond, and it's got fish in the pond and stuff like that. That painting is the first time I did that painting. I kept the cartoon, and I did it again. God bless me.
So it's kind of like a pattern then,
Yes,
where like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So patterns like that could be used for tapestry. This is a tapestry, and it's based on a Raphael painting. And so what he did is he sold his image and stuff all over Europe. So rather than doing one painting and it being great and famous up there on the wall like Leonardo does in The Last Supper, it ends up going all around the world and spreading. And so economic reasons and for his fame. Interesting. All right. I'm sure I've got other stuff here. Oh yeah, the Pope who had the nerve. Pope Leo X, with his cousins, Cardinal Giulio de' Medici and Luigi de' Rossi. It's a family affair. He nearly bankrupted the Vatican, fighting a war for, I hope I'm saying that, Luigi, I think it's Luigi. I can't remember if it's Giulio or Luigi. But you didn't know that. The popes and the cardinals would have territory and they would go to war at times. They tried to avoid it, but when necessary, the Pope had an army. Okay?
So they had kind of like a.
Yeah?
So they had kind of like a feudal system almost, sort of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was. I mean, we're doing city-states. On that note, it's 9:20, right?
Oh, yep. Yeah, I got to get going.
Here's my question. A couple of times I've just gone on with the lecture for the next 45 minutes or hour. I'm wondering if I should wait and do it again next Thursday. In other words, stop right here and we'll pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. All right. Haley, I'm gonna work this OneDrive thing. Start posting PowerPoints up there, and I'm gonna also post the assignments and come up with a protocol for you guys to submit them through. Well, either through the OneDrive or through email. That's gonna be maybe the way to go. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Mhm.